The winter wind howled through the dense forests of Germania, carrying with it the scent of pine, damp earth, and the lingering smoke of battle. The tribes had long fought against the encroaching Roman legions, but now something had changed. The people were uniting. No longer would they be scattered clans warring among themselves while the Romans carved up their land. A leader had risen, Arminius, a warrior of cunning and fire, born among the Cherusci but trained in the ways of Rome. The evening sky was heavy with storm clouds as the chieftains gathered in the sacred grove. Fires burned in a great circle, casting flickering shadows on the ancient trees that bore witness to their ancestors' spirits. Arminius stood at the center, his piercing blue eyes scanning the faces of warriors from various tribes, the Marcomanni, the Chatti, the Bructeri, and beyond. The time had come for unity. He raised his voice above the wind, calling upon the gods and his brethren. Too long have we bled at the hands of Rome. Too long have we sent our sons as their soldiers, our daughters as their slaves. No more. The forests of our fathers shall not bear their banners. A murmur of agreement rippled through the assembly, growing into a fierce roar. They had all suffered. Roman taxation, forced tributes, and the insult of occupation had turned even the most hesitant chieftains into bitter enemies of the empire. But what Arminius proposed was bold, a full-scale rebellion against the might of Rome itself. Among those who listened with grim determination was Segimund, a warrior of the Chatti. He had seen his father slain by Roman steel, his village burned when his people refused to yield. His hands clenched into fists as Arminius spoke of vengeance, of reclaiming their honor. He met the eyes of his kin, saw the same fire reflected there. They would fight. The preparation for war was swift and relentless. The warriors honed their axes, fletched their arrows, and readied their spears. The Roman legions were disciplined, well-trained, and armored, but the Germanic warriors had the land itself as their ally. The forests would be their shield, the rivers their guardians. They would not meet the Romans in open battle but strike from the shadows, using the land's rugged terrain to their advantage. The fateful moment arrived when the Roman general Varus, confident in his dominion over the region, led his legions through the Teutoburg Forest. Arminius, having feigned loyalty to Rome for years, fed them false assurances of safe passage. The legions, burdened by heavy armor and supply trains, marched deep into the heart of Germania. That was when the storm broke. A sudden, deafening battle cry erupted from the trees. The Romans barely had time to form a defensive line before the first wave of Germanic warriors descended upon them with unrelenting fury. Arrows rained from above, javelins found their marks, and the undergrowth came alive with warriors wielding long swords and axes. Panic spread among the legionaries as they struggled to maneuver in the thick forest. The Germanic warriors moved like ghosts, striking and vanishing before the Romans could counter. Segimund fought with all the rage he had bottled for years. He drove his spear into the gut of a centurion, dodged the wild swing of another soldier's gladius, and brought his axe down upon the Roman's exposed neck. Blood sprayed onto the damp earth. Around him, his brothers and sisters fought with equal savagery, their war cries blending with the screams of dying Romans. For 3 days the battle raged. The forest, once a sanctuary of towering trees and whispering leaves, became a graveyard of Roman bodies. Their shields, meant for organized formations, were useless against the relentless ambushes. By the time the last day dawned, the legions were shattered. Varus, realizing the scale of his defeat, chose death over capture, falling on his own sword. News of the massacre sent shockwaves through the Roman world. 3 entire legions had been annihilated, their eagles lost, their banners trampled in the dirt. Rome had suffered defeats before, but never had it been so thoroughly humiliated by what they had deemed mere barbarians. Emperor Augustus, upon hearing of the disaster, is said to have wandered his palace, crying out in despair, "Varus, give me back my legions!" But Germania did not revel in peace for long. Rome did not forget. The empire retaliated, sending wave after wave of soldiers under generals determined to reclaim what was lost. The Germanic tribes fought fiercely, but unity, so briefly forged, began to crumble. Chieftains squabbled over land, power, and revenge. Arminius himself, once hailed as a savior, was eventually betrayed by his own kin, murdered before he could see his dream of a free Germania fully realized. Yet his legacy endured. The Battle of Teutoburg Forest marked the end of Roman expansion into Germania. The empire, though mighty, accepted that beyond the Rhine lay a people who would never submit. The Germanic tribes, though divided, had earned their place in history as warriors who defied the greatest empire of their time. Generations later, the spirit of defiance lived on. When Rome finally crumbled, it was the descendants of those same warriors who carved their own kingdoms from its ruins. The Franks, the Goths, the Vandals, all bore the blood of the tribes that once stood in defiance of Rome's might. As the fires of Germania continued to burn through the ages, the legend of Arminius and his warriors remained a tale of courage, betrayal, and the unyielding will of a people who chose freedom over submission. The barbarians had risen, and their legacy would shape the course of history forever. Yet, even as Germania remained unconquered, new threats arose. The shifting tides of power saw Germanic warbands venture beyond their forests, their ambitions growing. Rome, though weakened, remained formidable, and its legions still patrolled the borders, waiting for any sign of weakness. Some Germanic tribes sought peace and trade, while others dreamed of conquest. Segimund, now a seasoned warrior, found himself at the heart of this new era. He had once fought to drive Rome out of his homeland, but as he watched the younger warriors train, he wondered, would they now seek to bring war to the empire itself? Rumors swirled of a great leader rising among the Goths, a chieftain who spoke of taking Rome's riches for their own. The legacy of the barbarian tribes was far from over. Their defiance had shaken the foundations of an empire, but their ambitions would shape the world yet again. The echoes of Teutoburg still whispered through the forests, and the blood of warriors past still burned in the hearts of those who would one day march beyond the Rhine, seeking their own place in the annals of history.